What's up guys, Levi and Hunter here with Black Hills Project. Today we're going to go over setting up and shooting your AR at long ranges. What we're going to do is we're going to talk about getting velocities, understanding your ammunition and how it works with your barrel, and we're going to demonstrate putting all that information together and shooting it out to longer ranges. So I hope you guys enjoy and learn something today.
Alright, so the first thing we're going to do in this video is something that we always do at the beginning of a weekend is getting our velocities and truing our scope up, making sure it's zeroed. We use 100 yards as our zero distance. You can use meters, you can use whatever you want, but we've found that yards works fine. We're using a mil reticle, so technically I think it's supposed to be in meters, but again, the apps and the Kestrel and all that will compensate for being in yards versus meters. The second thing, which I mentioned before, is getting our velocities. So velocity is extremely important. If you don't have it, you might not as well shoot long range. In my opinion and a lot of other people's opinion, there's no reason to shoot it if you don't know where the bullet is dropping at. So something that a lot of people go off of is we're going to be using the AAC 77 grain OTM today to show off. Their box states 2700 FPS. That is in perfect conditions with a 20-inch barrel. You're not going to be getting that unless you're in perfect conditions with a 20-inch barrel. Today we're going to be using a 14 5-inch barrel. Generally in the past, my experience with 77 grain out of a 5.56 or 223 has been 2550 FPS or less out of a 14.5. It all depends, and that's why we get chrono data, our velocity data. It's something that we do every single time before we go shoot, just to get everything set up properly. So we're going to go into that, and then next, once we're finished with all that, we're going to be going into our ballistic app. In our case, it's Geoballistic. We found that this software has worked stellar. It's very good. The weather implementation that it has in it is better than most. So we'll go over that as well, and we'll show you how to set it up in the app. We might go over a little bit of a Kestrel setup as well, but for now, since this is widely available to everybody, it's a free app, we're going to be just mainly focusing on Geoballistic today.
Alright guys, so I'm down here on the rifle now. We've got a target at 100 yards. What we're going to do is we're going to shoot a 5-shot group to get our velocities on this batch of ammo in this environment, in this temperature and everything. And we're also going to be verifying the zero on my rifle. Another thing I'm going to do while I'm doing all this is I've got my notebook here, and every time I do this, I record the temperature, I record my velocities, and I record if I have any kind of zero shift, just to have data to go look back at. And that's going to help me, in the future, if I'm going to shoot in these same conditions, I've got something to look back at for that. So we're going to go ahead and put a 5-shot group on the paper down there. Then we'll come back up here and explain how to use that data in the app, and we'll go from there. Alright, so we're down here at the target looking at our group. We measured it with the Geoballistics app. And with this flyer that I called right off here to the right, we're just under an MOA group still. So that's still a good solid group. As you can see, it's definitely trending a little low. So probably what I would do is I'm going to probably bring it 0.1 mils up and reconfirm on another dot. But you guys don't need to see that right now. What we're going to do is we're going to go back to the truck. We're going to look at the velocities on the Garmin, and we're going to start plugging all that into the app to show you guys how that can apply at long range.
Alright, so as you can see here, the average on this group was 2553. The summary shows that we've had a standard deviation of 16.2, which on factory precision ammo, especially as cheap as this stuff is actually, I'd say that's very good. We're off to a really good start here. Like I said earlier, the average out of 14.5 with 77 grains, about 2550. Pretty much nailed that on the head there. So we'll keep moving forward, and we'll show you how to use all this data. so now that we got the barrel velocity, we've got the scope and rifle zeroed at 100 yards, we're going to go into Geoballistics now and input all that information. We're going to set up a new rifle, and we're going to show you how it works. So right now, we're going to go into Geoballistics, and we're going to click on the bottom left icon for the rifles page, and we're going to create a new rifle. So now we have to name it, so I'm just going to call it 14.5. So the first thing we have to do is select the bullet, and Geoballistics has a whole library of bullets and weights and sizes and all that. So we're going to click on this, we're going to select the caliber, we're going to select on 223 Remington, and so the AAC OTM, the 77 grain, does not have a I guess a bullet in Geoballistics database right now, but that's okay. We did find their, I guess, inspiration for the bullet is a Sierra Match King 77 grain. So we're going to select Sierra at the bottom of the list. We're going to select the bullet weight of 77 grains, and we're going to select the Sierra HPBT Match King and Cannelard, because that is what this is it has cannelars on it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to just go and verify some data in here. So we're going to edit the bullet. So we got the caliber, we got the weight, and then we got the length. Those are all accurate for this specific bullet. And now we have the drag model. So the ballistic coefficient and the drag model are two different things that help us, I guess, do the math for the projectile flying in the air. There's two different drag models, there's G1 and G7. G1 is a bit of an older method of, I guess, calculating the trajectory of the bullet. And then G7 is more of an accurate, new, modern way of doing it. But for this bullet, it's a G1 drag model. So we're going to select that. Metro, don't worry about that, just use the Army one. And then the ballistic coefficient, this has 4 different ones for this specific bullet. Luckily, we're only going to be going into the velocity min, velocity max, the 2500 to 3000 FPS. And since, as we'll go into here in a second, we are between 2500 and 3000. So 0.362 is actually what AAC claims their OTM ballistic coefficient is. So we're going to keep that as it is, and we're going to back out of here. Alright, next we're going to go down to the rifle. So the rifle, we just need to set up a few things here. The sight height, what we have to do here is the middle of the bolt to the middle of the scope is what our sight height would be. So on an AR-15, from the middle of the bolt to the top of the rail is about 1.25 inches. About 1.2 inches is about actually what it is. And since we have a 1.5 inch height mount on here, we're just going to call it a 2.7 inch sight height. And it doesn't need to be perfectly accurate, it just needs to be in the ballpark. So even if it's 2.72, 2.75, we're still just going to say it's 2.7 and we're going to roll with that. It's not the most important parameter in here. Zero range, that is very important. Since we did it in yards and we did it at 100 yards, we're going to input 100 yards here. The elevation offset and the windage offset we don't need to play with right now since everything is zeroed up. Barrel twist, that is important. You got to make sure that we put that in. And so if you don't know it, it's either on your barrel somewhere or it's online. You can find it, go to your manufacturer for your barrel. We know this barrel in specific is a 1 8 twist. It's a stealth barrel from LaRue. And so we're going to put in 1 8. All we have to do is put in 8 for that. Now, muzzle velocity. Probably the most important parameter here, so make sure you have a good data, you have good averages. Since we were within a 16-ish standard deviation for our ammo here, we're actually pretty confident in saying we have about a 25, 52 FPS average on this one. So we're going to put that in. Again, if you don't know your muzzle velocity, or you don't know, or you don't own a chrono, or you don't have access to one, the general rule of thumb is with a 14.5 that I've found with 77 grain, about 2550, 2600 for a 16 inch, and 2650 for an 18 inch. And then 2800 or 2700, mind you, for a 20 inch. If you want more data than just my experiences, You can go online, ask around, see if somebody has data for this barrel, that barrel. But the best thing that you really should be doing is at least going out and buying a cheaper chrono just to have a baseline. So we're going to go down the list here. There's not really much else, if anything, that we're going to be doing. The muzzle velocity temperature, you can use that if you want to. It would input the temperature that is outside right now, and then you would put in the muzzle velocity that you got, and you can keep adding to that as you get more data. For if you go like today is 75 degrees, we can input 75 degrees here, and then input the velocity we got, which was 2552. And then next time we go out and do our data, we can just put it in again. If it was a different temperature, let's say it was 50 degrees, right? And generally, if it's a little bit colder out, then we can assume that it's going to be lower. Obviously check. We could say it's 2500 FPS or something. You know, it doesn't need to be perfect, and you don't need to do this, but it is a nice feature. And then down the line, optic. We are using MRAD, and the elevation and the windage are in 1 increments here. If you have MOA, then you can just use MOA inches. I've never seen anybody use an inch scope at all. And lastly, the overlays, we don't use those. That's not something that we really care about. That's mainly, from my experience, that's more for hunting. And then muzzle velocity corrections, that is something that we mentioned in our podcast briefly a while back. That's when you go out to about 400 or 500 yards with a 223 and shoot what the ballistic app tells you need for a 400-foot drop, and then you would adjust that correction in the app here, and then that would give you your true velocity. And if that's another solution, if you don't have a chrono, but you have access to about 400 or 500 yards, then you can do this, and then you get a very, very accurate velocity there. But again, we're not going to do that right now. We've had success with not truing, but if you have the time and the means to do it, I would definitely recommend looking more into that. It's not something we're going to be covering in today's video. So that is setting up the rifle completely. Next, we're going to go in and we're going to go out a little bit and show you how to use this data and a little bit more of the tricks and features of the app. If you don't have a rangefinder, then we'll show you how to use the app to get a pretty good accurized summary of the range that you're going to be shooting at. Geoballistics is just a very feature-packed and also free to an extent app. I believe there's a $15 charge to do unlimited rifles and guns in here, but all the other features are free. So we'll just show you how to do a decent amount of them here, and we'll just try and get some good shots on for you. So we're out here at about 400 yards, and we'll confirm that here in a moment using Geoballistics. But there's a couple things we got to do. We got the gun set up. We're all set up here. Levi's sitting in the back right behind me, and we're going to take our first shots. So what we're going to do first is we've already ranged it using a rangefinder. We got about 398 yards, but to do it in the phone on Geoballistics, we're actually going to go in here. We're going to make sure that we have our rifle selected, and we're going to go into map. And right now, what it's going to do, we're out in the middle of nowhere, so it's going to take a second here, but it's got us, our position here, and once we get it to load, all right, so we're going to set ourselves here. We're going to zoom in just about as close as we can get, and we're just going to put this crosshair over ourselves, and we're going to tap the little human icon. That's us. And now we're going to go all the way out to where we know that our target is. And our target is in this cove right here. You can actually probably see it on the map here. That's it right there. Or actually, no, we're a little bit higher. No, that's actually it right there, 398. Perfect. They got a picture of us there, or our target there already. So we're going to tap the little target icon. We know that it's 398 yards, so now if we go back into the chart mode, we set it up for about 2,000 yards here, which we don't need, but we're also going to kind of point our phone towards the target area, and then I'm also going to put it on the the surface that the gun is resting on. We're going to kind of point the top of the phone towards it. We're going to tap the angle. We're going to tap the direction mode here. That way the Geoballistics knows that the way we're facing, so we can I guess account for the wind and all that. So now we got that set up. We're going to go into the settings, or I'm sorry, we're going to go into the weather. And what we're going to do, the cool thing with Geoballistics is that it pulls weather from airports, and airport weather is much more accurate and quick updating than your local weather channel. So we're going to use the first one that comes up here, and we actually have a variable wind. That's why we don't have wind direction. So we'll put that in ourselves, but usually you can just, it's not grayed out like this is. So we can press use and then use for our atmospherics. So now I'm going to go in and actually just put in 0 or 360 for our wind, and then we're going to put in 6 for the wind speed. Once you have that in, we can back out. And I like the chart mode, but right now, since we know exactly how far we're going to be shooting out at, we're going to enter our range, which we know is 398 yards in the HUD mode. So now we know that we need to dial for 2.5 mils up, and with the wind direction being the way that it is, we're just going to dial left 0.3 mils, and that theoretically should get us a first round hit at this range. If you want a little bit more accurate weather, you can pair it up with a Kestrel, a weather flow, anything that has real-time weather ballistics. We might do another video on that another day. We have a Kestrel, and that's what I use mainly for my ballistics solving and all that. But right now, we're using Geoballistics because it's more widely available, and generally, you're about 90% of the way there with Geoballistics and their weather solution with the nearby airports. So right now, we're going to dial for 2.5 mils up. We're going to go 0.3 to mils to the left, and we're going to see what we get here. I'm going to move out of the way and get on the spotting scope for Levi, and we'll go from there.
So like Hunter said, the app's calling for 2.5 mils up. So we're going to go ahead and dial that. We are at 2.5, and it called for a 0.3 wind hold. I'm not going to dial that. I'm just going to go ahead and hold a little bit left to the center of the target. And we're going to see if we can go ahead and connect out here. Alright, I saw it just over the left shoulder. So I'm going to come down a little bit and hold center. Hit! Hit! Left side. Hit! Alright, so you can see that hold was a little bit high. I'd probably come down maybe 0.2 off of that, but this is going to demonstrate for you guys why it's important to actually go out and verify this, not just take the app's word for it 100%, because that app's really just going to get you in that ballpark, and then you need to go out and shoot it to verify it, and that's what's going to actually give you a dope for your rifle. So I think we're going to go ahead and move back to 550 yards. Again, we're going to confirm and see how close we are to the app dope from that, and then we'll go from there. Alright, so we're getting 536 yards for our range now. The app is calling for 4.5 mils of elevation, and it's calling for a 0.4 left wind hold, which at 400, I was just holding dead center to get hits, so I'm probably going to start holding center again. We were also a little bit high with our dialing last time, so we'll see where these land, and we'll go from there. Yeah, let's go with 4.5 mils and take some shots. Another thing I'm doing is making sure my gun's level with my little bubble level that I have underneath my scope here.
Hit!
That was the first round hit at 536. Looks like our dope is pretty good at this range. Let's go ahead and follow that up.
Hit! Hit!
Yeah, I pulled that one to the right. But yeah, so that our dope is definitely accurate at this range. Again, that wind call, I kind of used my discernment and my data from my last shots. And again, I was holding center there, so no wind, contrary to what the app said. But that's just something experience and getting out there and shooting will teach you. So we're going to head back to around 830 yards and see what we can do from back there. All right, so we are now back here at 830 yards. Geoballistics is calling for 10.5 mils of elevation. So we're going to go with that. And we're going to kind of feel out the wind as we go. We are back here at 830. We're actually getting a little bit right to left wind. So I'm going to hold towards the right edge of the target. And we're just going to see if we can walk it in, see how close this data is. I do want to clarify, at 500 I was talking about dope, and I was referring to the data that I had gotten from shooting at 400. Obviously, we don't have dope right now for this because that's what we're generating. So, but yeah, let's go ahead and see if we can get it done at 830. No call. I'm going to try holding center instead of holding any wind. Okay. Okay, I'll go half a mil low. Oh, I think, yeah, just right over the right shoulder. See that plant bobbing?
Yeah.
So I'm going to come down to 10, an even 10.
Okay.
And then I'm going to hold center since I was to the right. That was a hit.
There you go.
Hit. Yeah, I feel that breeze just came up, pushed to the left edge.
That was a hit.
Yep, hit. So yeah, basically guys, I am dialed back now to 9.9 mils instead of the 10.5 the app called for. And we do have a really weird, like, we'll probably show a piece of footage of it here, but this actually goes down across several sets of hills and a bunch of valleys and stuff, so it's always very weird shooting with the wind here. Because up here we actually have a right to left wind, but on target we have a left to right wind. So wind calls are very, very interesting here. But again, this is just going to show you that the app's going to get you in the ballpark, right? It's going to get you close to where you need to be and allow you to walk it in like I just did here. We started at that 10.5, took us a few shots to find it, and then we walked it in at like I said, at that 9.9 mils. And then again, the wind call was completely opposite because Geoballistics is taking weather from your closest airport, but for me, that's 30-40 miles away. So it's just getting you in the ballpark, and that's why it's really important to actually go out and shoot and verify the data that Geoballistics is giving you and actually create your own data on previous engagements so that you know, hey, at this temperature, at this altitude, if I'm at 830 yards, I need to be at 9.9 mils. Even if the app disagrees, like I said, that's just to get you in the ballpark.
Alright guys, so the footage that's being shown in the background is me setting up to take shots at 830 yards right after Levi. We didn't film any kind of intro or anything to that, but it was mainly my own interest of seeing the difference between a Kestrel and the Geoballistics app that we've been using. The main goal behind this was to see if we were able to achieve first shot hits using a Kestrel with all the weather and all the atmospheric data that it gives you versus using Geoballistics internal weather with the airport system. We'll let this play in the background and you guys can see how it goes.
Hit first round. call. No call. I think your wind's picking up a little. Hit. Hit. No call.
That's a hit.
Yep, hit.
So was that 6 out of 10?
Something like that. It was a good percentage.
I'll take it.
All right, guys, so as you saw, Geoballistics or whatever ballistic app that you choose can be a really great tool. Like we said, we really like the Geoballistics. It has a lot of great features, but it really only gets you about 90% of the way there. It's going to get you in the ballpark. It's going to get you close, and really there's a lot of other factors that are going to get you that last 10%.
Yep. The last 10% is, while there are factors, I think the main thing is that weather, specifically wind direction, and to a certain degree temperature, but it's mainly the wind and wind direction. Like Levi had mentioned, where we're at is a little strange. We're getting left wind up here, right wind at the target. It gets drastically or exponentially more of a, I guess, noticeable difference the further you get away, obviously. So as we were able to get hit after hit after hit up to about 550 yards, once we got out 300 yards further, it got a little bit more of, you need to start walking it in, using the data on the app as more of a starting point, and then moving it in. And that's why getting your dope, and when we say dope, we're talking about data on previous engagements. So what that means is using the app and having a little book or an Excel sheet or whatever you want to use. Say I shot 830 yards today. The app told me I needed to be at 10.5. I actually needed to be at 9.9. This was what the wind was doing. This is the location I was at. This is the temperature. And just record that and then come back a week later. Maybe the wind's a little bit higher or lower, or it's coming from a different direction. Maybe it's a little bit colder out. Just record that, get all that information somewhere. That way you can reference it when you use the app the next time and say it's in the middle. Say it's 70 degrees. It was 80 one week and 60 the other week, and wind was this at this. I'm going to use the app and I'm going to kind of extrapolate information from that and then use your past experience to get better hits.
And I actually had my dope inside my scope cap on my rifle, and when we got done shooting at 8:30, I mentioned to Hunter that, yeah, I was actually dialed back to exactly what the dope inside my scope cap was.
Right, and that's the average after shooting, 500 rounds at this spot.
Right.
So the only other way to really just be able to get those first round hits every single time, in my experience, is getting a Kestrel. And as you saw later in the video, when I went up to shoot, I used my Kestrel. I didn't use Geoballistics. I used the Kestrel, and I used 77 grain out of my rifle. We were actually chronoing. I think my gun was about 10 FPS faster than his.
Yep.
So mine was calling for 9.7 mils. I held right on, and I hit 2 in a row, missed a third, hit the fourth, and just kept going from there. So, and as I say that, like we had talked about, the wind here is a little funny. I was holding left edge of the target for the first 2 shots. I missed the third, and then I hit the fourth one, but I was holding on the right edge. So it's just, that's another thing you have to account for, is you just understand to an extent your environment that you're in. You didn't have to shoot there once before. It's just, you kind of get there and you say, hey, there's a few hills in the between us. That's going to be a little funky, and we'll just go from there. And that's why I think Geoballistics is such a strong tool, because it gets you 90% of the way there. Mm-hmm. It gets you close, and then as you shoot more and as you shoot more long range, your experience tells you, hey, 10.6 sounds a little high, or holding the left side of the target is a little weird because I'm seeing a mirage that's going from right to left instead. So it's just, the more you shoot, the more experience you gain, the more you can utilize apps like Geoballistic to their fullest potential. beginners. That's why we're making this video, is for beginners to kind of understand that. Obviously the next step up would be a Kestrel, but sometimes I sit there and think, why did I buy this when I can just get Geoballistics and get it close enough, you know?
Yeah, at the end of the day, really, nothing's going to trump the experience and how many rounds you've got downrange. The more you shoot, the more it's just going to become second nature, and the better you are going to be at using whatever tool it is.
Yep.
So we really hope that this video has been helpful for you guys. This is, like we say on most of our stuff, this is the kind of video that we really wish someone had made when we were getting into this. So we're really out here trying to help you guys and make your life easier, help you save money by getting the right tools the first time instead of going through iterations of stuff that you didn't need and stuff like that. But if you do have any more questions about this, feel free to leave a comment. Go over to our Instagram, which is linked, and we're pretty active there. We're happy to help you guys with anything we can. We love interacting with you guys. But yeah, until next time.
Yep.
Thanks for watching.